Hey everyone, it is me, that Retro Geek, aka Retro Geek Gaming. Thank you for joining me for another YouTube video here today. We're going to get a little bit into the geeky stuff as well as also into the gaming stuff. So come along with me as we talk about the Zelda timeline. I wanted to try and do at least one more Zelda Theory before we get to Tears of the Kingdom, and I may have other Zelda videos coming down the pipeline. Really going to depend upon what I read and what sort of pops into my head. But something that recently came into my head was the idea of the timeline split. Why it happened, and sort of what it signifies, and also maybe we'll shoot the breeze a little bit and come up with a semi-other theory, kind of a 2-for-1. We'll kind of see how it goes, okay? But we all know that we have the Triforce, right? Now, the Triforce wasn't created in Skyward Sword, but it was first assembled by Link, if I remember correctly. I believe it was assembled by the Link that's in Skyward Sword. And if I also remember correctly, Skyward Sword didn't have a name for the hero in that game. I know it's been a while since I played Skyward Sword. I remember a lot of what the game did, but I don't remember small little details like that. But what I do remember, and of course everybody remembers, was sort of the origins of the Triforce, right? How it was made by the goddesses. A little bit of a theory on that coming up, I think. But interestingly, with this video, we're talking about the timeline, right? Well, let's think about it for a second, and maybe you'll sort of see where I'm coming from. We have 3 parts of this timeline. We have the child timeline, we have the adult timeline, and then we have the downfall timeline. And the downfall timeline was one that wasn't really confirmed until we got to Hyrule Historia, but it was the kind of thing that we kind of semi-knew about through Ocarina of Time itself, because Zelda sends Link back in time to live his childhood and not get involved with the events that take place in Ocarina of Time. So we already have a split in the timeline there, but we have a downfall timeline. And it's interesting that in the downfall timeline, I don't recall there being too much reference to heroes, and Hyrule is sort of in despair, and there's not really that much reference to the Triforce and everything, but it's still an important note, an important part of this timeline piece. And why is that? Well, we have 3 parts of the Triforce, right? Courage, wisdom, and power. And you may have already been able to put 2 and 2 together, but if you've not, let me continue to put some pieces into this puzzle. Each piece of the Triforce is meant to represent one of those 3. We know that from Skyward Sword we have Demise's curse. When he's defeated at the end, he says, I'm not done. My rage will live on. I'm going to keep coming back. My rage is going to transfer into someone else that's going to continue to come forward and want to end Hyrule. And because of that, there's always going to be a hero that stands up against him. And there's always going to be someone that's Zelda-like, or an embodiment of the goddess, Hylia, that's going to step in also. That's where we got the 3 parts of the Triforce. Demise is meant to be power, and in later games, of course, it's Ganon/Ganondorf. The Triforce of Wisdom, which is part of Zelda/Hylia, and of course courage, which is the hero. Now, the 2 parts of the Triforce make sense: power and wisdom. Divine entities. In Demise/Ganondorf, who is the physical embodiment, a human Gerudo, whatever. I guess they're still human, I guess, that is able to handle that power. And then, of course, wisdom, Hylia, a divine goddess, and Zelda being the physical embodiment of something that can handle that. Now, there is no physical embodiment of Link, but it's meant to be a representation of courage, or a hero that steps forward despite how they feel. Whether they're doing it for their sister, whether they're doing it for Hyrule, whether they're doing it for honor, for themselves, whatever their motives is, they're stepping up to the plate to take out this evil and to stop them. Okay, so we have those 3 parts of the Triforce, and we have 3 timelines. You can kind of already see where this is going. Each part of the Zelda timeline is their wish. We know that when we get our hands on the Triforce, which doesn't say specifically, I don't think it says specifically that it has to be touched, but just that when all 3 pieces are together, meaning that when Zelda, Link, and Ganondorf, in the case of Ocarina of Time, are together, which they are at the end of Ocarina of Time, they're able to have their wish granted. And what do we see come from this after the results of Ocarina of Time? Well, we get Zelda's wish, where Link goes back, lives his childhood. We get that timeline. Then we get Link's wish, which is that he continues to be the hero. He goes forward, and we get the games that are a part of his timeline. And then what would Ganondorf possibly wish for, but for the downfall and the destruction of Hyrule? He is the downfall timeline. And it makes sense that in games after that, like the original Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda, he's still the big bad. And he's basically taken over Hyrule, and he's broken apart the Triforce. And now Link's got to go find these pieces of the Triforce to put it back together to stop him. He is the downfall timeline. It's a very interesting theory. Now, how do we get back to Breath of the Wild, where the timelines combine back together? Who knows? But just like it states in the origins, I guess, of the Triforce, that they were created by goddesses when they left this realm, I think that we sort of have this weird thing going on where stories are passed down generation to generation. Hyrule, despite the fact that we have seen constructs with Tears of the Kingdom, we've seen robots in Skyward Sword, we've seen Sheikah technology. Despite the fact that we have seen these glimpses of technology, it doesn't seem like Hyrule has a whole lot of well-written history, or maybe biased one-sided history based upon how, you know, the Hyrule royal family is skewing it. But I kind of have a theory that rather than continue to talk about how Ganondorf is one of the goddesses, basically he's one of the ones that created a Triforce piece to forever have power, or just the rage, I guess, of demise in this case, because that's where Ganondorf's power comes from. They created a story about the goddesses. I know that that's technically a way off theory, and something that maybe I need to elaborate on in a future video, but I really do think that I have something going with the timeline. Now, could we easily have had the timelines fused back together because we now have a Ganondorf? At least it seems from Tears of the Kingdom. If, you know, we assume that that's Ganondorf, we haven't heard otherwise. If it is Ganondorf, going with the fact that it is Ganondorf, that he has been imprisoned under Hyrule Castle for thousands of years, so there hasn't been a need for a continued downfall timeline. And with Zelda not having her abilities unlocked like she used to, in fact, she doesn't really get those abilities unlocked again until practically the end. You know, when we get the backstory, we kind of get this point to us like, hey, now I'm slowly getting the goddess Hylia powers back. There's only been a need for one timeline. So now the question is, are we looping back around again? Like the Ouroboros symbol shows, and like I've talked about in a previous video, about how it seems like we're looping back to the beginning of Skyward Sword. Are we now getting to a point to where we are basically getting back to some kind of a timeline split, or possibly looping back? Because now we have a Zelda that possibly is going to unlock the goddess Hylia powers in order to forever stop demise, which would just leave one timeline going forward forever, or possibly a loop back, because then the ones that defeated Demise would be the Hylia and her chosen champion that came down from the skies, and there's Sky Islands in Tears of the Kingdom and in Skyward Sword. So did we just loop? Who knows? Only time will tell, but I'm looking so forward to playing Tears of the Kingdom. You have no idea. Like, I really want there to be a demo or something coming out soon to give this game a shot, just to get my mouth watered a little bit before we get to release. But what do you guys think about this theory? Is it just a zany theory? You're kind of thinking, what are you talking about, Retro? Go take a nap. You're silly. Or is there some merit to it? We could possibly have some merit to it. But that's all that I have for you guys today. I appreciate you watching me for the full 11 minutes if you have watched this video up to now. If you did like this content, let me know that you watched it and that you liked it by giving me a thumbs up. That lets me know that you've seen the content, you like it, and you want more stuff like this. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you think about this theory, or just anything. Go back through my older videos and comment on them too. Doesn't really matter. And even though there's really no pressure for me to do any of those things, you are always welcome to subscribe to the channel, because I like to try to at least bring you weekly content, at least one video a week, except for times like lately where I've had health stuff going on and I had to take a hiatus. I had no choice because I was zonked out after surgery and all that stuff. But outside of that, I'm hoping to return back to at least one video a week, and I would love for you guys to come along on the journey with me. But that's my time for the day, everyone. I hope that you have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend if I don't talk to you at all the rest of this week. And I'll see you next time in the next video. Let's go retro.